Hi everyone, this video is about unit and lesson planning and effective lessons in the classroom. I've been fortunate enough to have observed a number of teachers for a couple of years now, and as I think about the most effective lessons that I've seen, the key and consistent elements have been that students are engaged, they know what they're supposed to be doing and what the end objective is, and also where they're feeling challenged but not so challenged that they can't do the work. To get to that point in the classroom, it's been clear that the lesson was well planned out. Every step supported the next. Transitions were well planned and executed, and the objective tied to a bigger picture or a big idea. One very effective lesson was a social studies lesson about Abraham Lincoln and his motivation for the Emancipation Proclamation. This lesson made use of close reading and opinion writing using evidence text, which was covered in reading and writing classes previously. The teacher first introduced the objective to the students. Then she showed them two videos that claimed two different positions on Lincoln's motivation. The students were asked to take notes while watching the video on the key points. After a brief discussion, the teacher handed out a worksheet and asked the students to go to different stations in the classroom and research the different opinions further, citing evidence for each. Different resources were made available to them at the stations in the form of books and articles. After a few minutes of research and discussion at each table, she then asked them to write a short speech, and they would use it in the classroom to debate on the topic. When the students were done, they gathered in a debate-style setting. They were given instruction on proper debate, and 3 students were assigned to be speakers to keep order over the debate. So all the students were very engaged in this activity because they had done the step-by-step work to give them confidence in their position. And the content stuck and made sense to the students because instead of being given an answer, they had to figure it out for themselves. So definitely student-centered learning. Obviously, this teacher had to be very intentional about this lesson. Not only did she have to plan every step and how the steps will support the next one, but she also needed to make sure that the objective of the lesson was part of the core curriculum and it supported interdisciplinary learning. She had to have all the materials ready and in the right place in the classroom. And the best thing to say about this lesson is that the students continued to debate outside of the classroom and retained a lot of the learning 2 weeks later when the topic came up again. Another example of an effective lesson is a math lesson where the teacher used a reflection sheet to get the students to think about what they learned. The teacher went through instruction for using number line to add and subtract fractions and whole numbers. After his instruction, he had the students complete 2 calculations in a group setting. Then he assigned a mix of numerical and word problems to practice what was being taught. The students sat in group tables and worked either independently or within the group structure, whatever they felt was better for them. After a few minutes, he handed out the reflection sheet with a number of questions about how they could use what they learned, what limitations were on the strategy that they learned, and so on. This was effective because even the students that struggled with the calculations took the time to really think about these questions, which deepened their takeaway, especially for the question that asks about limitations. Again, the good planning was reflected in the different activities during the lesson, the transitions between activities, and making sure that the reflection evoked a deeper understanding of the material, not just learning a math process. This lesson was very much tied to the core curriculum. Effective formative assessments really depend on the subject. Exit tickets work well with math, which is my area of specialization. You can get a good idea of the student's grasp of the lesson with a couple of questions at the end of the lesson or at the beginning of the next lesson. On the other hand, reading or writing formatives are less about question and answer, but more effective when they consider the total of the classwork on an assignment by assignment basis, and a contrast of the current work with previous work so you can see the progression or the development of each student. I think all student activity in the classroom are really data points to a good formative assessment, and they can be used to give specific feedback on what can be done differently or to understand where the student needs support. For me, an ineffective formative assessment is one where the student is not getting feedback on what they need to work on, or the teacher doesn't scaffold where the student needs it. So an example of this would be if a student is given an exit ticket and they're unable to complete it, but the teacher just moves on to the next lesson and there is no feedback to that student. My own experience of working through lesson plans and unit plans gave me a real appreciation of that extra confidence that I can gain as a teacher with a more complete plan behind me. So for me, the unit plan helps give me a better big picture strategy that goes beyond the lesson by lesson objectives, and it can help me tie in other disciplines as well, and I can continue to keep the big picture in mind better so all my lessons are tying into that. The lesson planning really helped me in the area of differentiation. So I used to just keep in my mind how I was going to adapt the lesson for the different students, but when I write it down, it forces me to really think about how I can scaffold and support my instruction so it's not as ad hoc. So overall, I would say I got a lot out of this module and the templates were quite helpful. Thanks for watching.